Can everyone hear me? Right. Just gonna wait for a few more people to come in. Get acclimatized. Let me know if everything's all good in terms of like audio and stuff. Sweet. Yeah, there's a bit of a noticeable lag between here and there, obviously. Bear with as much as possible. So we are here today to go through some of my project files, and hopefully, if we make it in good time, we can 3 or 4 open. I'll try and explain everything, and ultimately, what I want is for you guys to ask the question, and yeah, for you guys to kind of lead me how it goes. I'm gonna wait 4 minutes. Yeah. Go on, shout out Terrence, Sean, Jordan, Mike, I see ya, Jonathan, Christian, Alex in the building. Building. Wicked. Cool. So, I thought I'd start off with a track of mine called Want to Know, which is more of like a kind of like a bass, I guess, bassier, jacking house kind of vibes. Then we'll go into my No Love remix project, then business as well, and hopefully the motors remix. Each other. Cool. All right. 39 people. I'm gonna wait for one more person to come in. Yeah, don't mind the haircut. I haven't had a haircut in like. All right, let's get started. So, 42 people. Okay, so you guys can see everything clearly and ask away as much as possible. Oh shit. Uh, uh, Tom, Eric, Chris, Ben, Dia, John. Yeah, I'm recording. Don't worry. In the gate for your mic. I'll just remove the gate. See how that sounds. I've got a limiter in there as well, but yeah. All right, let's get started. So I'm gonna play the track through first, just so you guys can get an idea of what it sounds like, and then we'll delve in. The audio and everything's pretty good. Oh shit! That was a good start.
I'll show you what you wanna know. Let me get burnt. I'll show you what you. I'll show you what you. Let me get burnt.
Anyway, you get the idea. So, sorry, my computer's just spazzing out a little bit because I've got Safari open for the stream. Okay. Alright, so welcome to the Taiki Nulight workshop. Yeah, I guess I'll just be running through, and then, like I said, you guys just ask as many questions as you want, and I try and explain it the best I can. Do you separate your sound design sessions from your writing sessions? So, I tend to try and make. I try to work on like a 4 or 8 bar loop, and make that sound as best as possible before I start to expand. But I'll get more into that kind of when we get through this anyway. So I think first let's just run through some of the plugins and stuff. So if you look at my drum bus, pretty
Make
simple.
your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Pretty simple. I group all my drums like in Logic you can make folder stacks, and I basically do my drums like that. Kick's very simple. I use Tau Sampler for all my sampling just because it's easy, and you can, sorry, I'm pointing at the screen. So you can load samples in and then kind of skim through. So if I wrote out all the MIDI basically and I didn't like the kick, I could drag and drop different kicks in, and then yeah, boom, you got a new kick. So yeah, let's carry on with that. So nothing much on the kick really, just a low cut for the beginning kick, just because. Yeah, I think I always have like a lighter kick and a heavier kick. Obviously a heavy kick for the drop and a light kick for the intro. Sometimes I mix it up. I think trial and error is probably the best way to see what your tunes sound like in terms. So structuring is the thing I'll do last when it comes to music, when it comes to writing tunes. And not much else apart from this piece of beautiful software, which is the Ampex. It's just like a tape saturator emulator, so it just colors the sound. I don't know if you guys will be able to really massively hear the difference between the two, but it's just like the tiniest bit more thud, I guess, or oomph is the only way I could put it. Apart from that, channel, so basically bus 9 for me is just a send bus. So whatever goes to bus 9 for me is a sidechain bus, and that's got no output. So if I want to sidechain anything, I'll just route the sidechaining to this output so that I can have a kick playing, a ghost kick playing, and that will sidechain without actually having a kick present. Some people like to do it with the actual kick. I like to do it as a ghost just because I have more control over what I want sidechained and what I don't want sidechained in particular. And then you can like automate how much you want it sidechained, and then just have a bit more control, I think. Your hat sounds so clean and no high frequency techniques when you approach on EQ your tops. Okay, so I think I'll just run through the drum bus and then I'll just look at questions, but this is going also very quickly. So yeah, again, Tau for my snares and claps. Just pretty basic stuff going on here. Again, sample inside Tau, very short decay and very short release, just so it snaps. If you don't know anything about Tau Sampler, I would recommend you just look at a video. It's very simple stuff. Put it overdrive, some EQ, probably just, yeah. So if I solo that snare, it was just a little bit too thuddy. So in Pro Q, if you hover over the waveform, it kind of outlines it, and you can drag different bits and peaks and stuff. So it's pretty cool. And then what I normally do is once I've got one chain for a clap or a snare, I kind of just duplicate. So a lot of these clap channels just came from that first one, which I've duplicated, and probably switched out the sample for just a different layer. So I'm super against over layering just because it can get really messy, and while at the time it sounds well, it seems what's the word? While it seems appropriate to keep layering because it sounds fatter, if anything, I've had so many project files where like I have like 8 claps or like 8 snares, just a ridiculous amount of layering. And actually, if I mute 7 of them and then just bring up the one that actually impacted the most, it sounds better instead of just putting like, because I think for me in terms of production, I always go like too far one way. I'll get really obsessed with one thing and then I'll go like the complete opposite, so that you know what both feel like, so you kind of get accustomed to what you as a producer like, I guess. So yeah, again, not much on here. this is just a like a widener. Again, not much going on here. So it's super mono without it, bit of dry wet. And what I like about this plugin is because it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's just one oscillator. It never resets, so every time the clap plays, it will play at a different dimension in your mix. So it kind of gives it a bit more of like a humanized feel, I guess. That's kind of what I use it for. And then quickly, last snap is probably just another layer. Yeah. I think with drums, it's important to try and fill out the spectrum. So like, instead of placing all your claps in one area of the frequency spectrum, like try and space out a little bit more. I know it's obviously different for different genres. I mean, when I made dubstep back in the day, you just like put a snare at 200 and just whack it up so it had that tonal. But for bass house, it's a bit different. And then I've got a last little clap here, which I call transient clap because it's got like a pre-transient, I guess, or like, yeah. You see this bit here? So if I just solo that bit, it's just, oh shit. It's just like the tiniest little. Oh, and another thing I've learned in Logic from my Logic people, instead of having to double click on the playhead to get something to play all the time, if you just press Command and drop a marquee tool, it will always play from that marquee tool. So if I'm working on a clap and I'm frustrated about doing this all the time or having to loop it, I can just put a marquee tool there, and then every time you press play, it'll play from there. Pretty decent. So that's the claps. Ghost snare is probably just like an off snare. Yeah. Again, nothing too fancy there. I think they all have the same overdrive because I'm a lazy shit. Yeah, pretty much. Then this impact thing is just so like what I would have been doing is focusing on a 4-bar loop. I'm probably just listening to it over and over and over again. And then the more you listen to it, for me anyway, the more and more I listen to a loop, the more and more stuff become obvious. So like, yeah, shit just becomes obvious. You're like, oh, that should go there because that feels right. I guess it's just intuition. Coming back to the hats thing we were talking about. So, how I do my hats is I have all my kicks going to bus 1, and then I have all my snares and claps going to bus 2. All my hats going to bus 3. So I group all my drums and then I process them as groups. And then what I'd usually do, I haven't done it in this project file, but what I'd usually do is then bus all of my drums into another bus, and then have some processing on that, but very subtle processing. For hats, it's pretty. Yeah, it's just like, again, towel. Yeah, this one's pretty simple. It's just, again, another towel sampler, no attack, no delay. Tiny bit of reverb, probably just to give it a bit more space. I mean, I think I definitely go through phases of liking reverb and hats, and then I go through other phases of just wanting them dry. So again, completely up to you, kind of what you prefer. And then I've got a bunch of plugins on the hat bus because I'm probably automating the echo and all the reverb. I've got an envelope on there just so that it keeps everything a little bit tighter. So again, like half of the stuff I'm doing, and at the time it makes sense, but and I actually revisit, it doesn't make sense. And then I'll probably put a reverb on the group just because I want to automate the whole hat group together. And then that's going to bus 12, which Oh, which is a drum bus, to be fair, but none of my other stuff's going to it, so it's just the hat's going through this drum bus, which is odd. But yeah, that's the drum bus. I'll play it again. And then, oh yeah, and then the last things I have here are little bits of bongo loops, which probably just cut out of, what is it, the Cashmere loop. So it originally sounded like that, but I just cut that end off. So yeah, nothing rocket science in here. It's pretty straightforward for all of that. Yeah, sorry, I need to keep up with the chat. Neat command track, mainly UAD from what it seems. Yeah, so I'll get into the UAD later and what plugins are worth it for me. I have them use space. Thank you, big fan of them. Is that why you lay it in Tau more control? I think with Tau it's just mainly laziness because I used to drag and drop audio files and kind of have them mapped out, but that's just so long because further down the line, if you didn't like something you want to replace it, it was just a fucking the longest mission to, get all the automations right and everything. Great people continue. Do you think the music here and drums aside from the kick snare tends to... So, not really. I think in terms of drums, just make them sound convincing as possible. Obviously, when you tune drums, they sound better and they're more convincing. So yes, I would encourage that. No outboard or just cheapy UAD bonus. I've got a Moog and a bass station that I use, which I'll get into again later on in this session. Do you layer your claps and snares really keep it separate? How do you mean? I layer my claps and snares together for sure. So clean and non-piercing. Thank you, Raymond. Good more general question. Do you take something so quickly? Oh man, chat's so annoying. Not you guys, but the chat on my iPad is so annoying because it keeps saying. Do you manually swing drums? Yes, I always manually swing my drums because, again, more control. You and Chris Renzo are particularly good at piano steps. Thank you very much. That's a very nice compliment. You go over your sub basses. Yeah, I'll go over everything. Do you combine your claps, snares, and layers? Yeah, so all my drums, all my claps and snares will definitely be grouped together, just because like it's easier to mix, I guess, for me, or that's just a habit that I've gotten into. Oh yeah, so the last thing, so on my clap bus here, this is an absolutely dope plugin. It's a really clean EQ. It's not the kind of EQ that you overdo on. I'd definitely stick to Pro Q for like the really heavy, like 12 dBs of EQing. But Manly is just like a polish. It's almost just like polishing a rock. It's a very final little EQ. And then Struder, again, I'm a massive fan of tape saturators because it just gives like that grainy. It's just coloring, really. Like if I turned it off and on, you probably wouldn't really be able to hear the difference all that very much. Okay, quite a big difference, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. Yeah, and then I've got a little stupid shaker thing here, which isn't doing anything. Nope. It's just kind of playing at a loop. Yeah, so what I would have done is probably made a drum loop got the drums to sound pretty much at the point they are now, so I would have probably looped this bit. At least like getting the drums to a point where you can kind of dance to it without anything on top. You can kind of vibe to it, make sure everything's hitting right before kind of moving on. Because I feel like obviously it's so daunting opening a new project file and trying to be creative. So if you break your production into steps, so it's just not overwhelming. So like for the first hour, you would purely focus on the drums and get the drums sounding absolutely smack and like really, really, really tight. And then from there, because you've already got something that sounds semi-good and you can vibe to, it's easier to start to be creative on something that you already have. So I tend to always work with drums, unless it's a remix, but I'll get into that later. So I would have probably got the drums to this point here. And then flicking through Splice or my samples, I found this sound. You know, not much to it. Very short attack, short delay, and a long release just because I want the notes to play out. And also, I don't ever put my MIDI all the way to the end. I always have just a little bit so I can control the release. And I think if I can remember correctly, I think it was this when I first started the project file, and this I literally listened to this for like an hour. Probably just this. Like, probably didn't even have those bits in the sub, so it was probably just that. And for me, I think that's enough of an inspiration to be like, oh, something's drawn me out there. I like how that first bit sounds, so I'm going to expand on that first bit. And I probably had that looping for God knows how long. Oh yeah, another trick side, what I just did. When you've got your MIDI selected, and you choose the notes that you want to choose, if you press Shift P, it will select everything on that grid. So for example, if I just chose this top one, and I press Shift P, and then Control M, it will unmute everything in that row. Whereas if I select these both and I press Shift P and then Control M, Control M, it will unmute everything that I've selected. So that's a little shortcut thing that saved a lot of time for me. So I'm just going to mute this up here so we can just kind of get into this a little bit more. So again, not a massive amount going on here. It's just Tau sampler sampling something with some EQ, basic EQ, probably a low cut, and then that will go into a bus, my bus 10, which is my synth bus, and that will have more EQing, which, wow, that's pretty damn dramatic. More EQing, compressor. And this, you know what, this compressor probably found its way onto here because sometimes, you know, when you double click on here or here, it like puts a compressor on for you. So like if I double click here, yeah, it puts a compressor. So I probably put the compressor there and they just left the settings and forgot because I'm an idiot. And then again, the Neve and the Struder, which are again just channel strips and tape filters. That stuff is, you don't have to know too much about that kind of stuff because it's more again for coloring. Coloring isn't good or bad, it's just different. It's more of just what you like and what you prefer. Like your favorite chocolate bar, you know. Yeah. So minimal processing going on here. The reason that I probably have that so high is because it probably wasn't punching through the mix as much. So if I mute that, come on. Yeah, it just gives a bit more presence. I think I had it like that for ages. I had it without the top EQ boosted so much, and then probably when it came to the end of the track and I was listening to it and I was referencing in between different tracks, I was probably thinking, yeah, it needs more tops. So I put more tops on it. So that's a very simple rhythm. It's just that 3 notes playing for the whole of the song. And it's definitely got a, what's it called? Call and response, because for me, in my head, it's kind of like this first note is the question and that's the answer. So in a 4-bar loop, you've got resolution. You've got, otherwise, like, if there's no answer to your question, it's just like sustained eeriness. And then maybe if you want that, then yeah. But I am just saying what I know. And then that keeps on going to the last bar. This is the same, but it's got an ARP on there, and I think I am automating the ARP rate, or it's just one rate. Yeah, so again, master laziness. I could have put that MIDI in twice, but for some reason I've got it duplicated and put an ARP in there, so. And again, instead of putting these MIDI up there, I've somehow thought it was a good idea to then duplicate it again and put it on. And then that basically, it's like, so if I have an 8-bar loop of something, I'll make sure on the, so if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, on the 7th bar, I have something that's a little bit more different. Because you could easily have it just like this forever, just looping over and over again, but then there's no like bigger resolution. I think there's like 4-bar resolutions, and then there's like 8-bar resolutions, and then 16-bar resolutions, and I'll get more into that as I do this. And then this is the same as the first, apart from it's probably got a faster rate on the ARP. Yeah. So that's just the same, apart from it's got a different speed. And I think I'm automating the cutoff. Yeah. So yeah, basic stuff, basic 101 stuff. Everyone should know this. And then into the second part, introducing some more sounds. So again, if I'd gotten from 41 to 57 finished, if I were to repeat section again and have another chorus, then something has to be different. So for me, it's like adding more drums, or adding more, vocals, or something that could be. Oh. Hello.
Do me a quick favor. Can you up your mic level about 2 dBs?
Up my mic level about 2 dBs. Yeah, no worries. Hold on.
Thank you, brother. You're great.
No worries. Oh, wait. Is that better? Alright, you know what, I'll make the music a bit louder as well. Dope. So this stabby sample probably would have been this sound with more attack, and I think I've got the so I would have put some plugin on it. I think it's Tornado. Tornado is like a multi-effects kind of really unpredictable plugin, and that basically I probably bounced this out, and it had all these weird artifacts. So like that one there, right there, I was like, damn, that's fucking cool. So I cut it up and I put it into the track, so it sounded like this.
You wanna know?
Again, yeah, super simple stuff. Now going to the sub. I mean, I wish there was more stuff for me to elaborate on in this project file, but there's honestly isn't that much. So the sub, again, super simple stuff. which is my good old friend Serum. If it'll load. There we go. So Serum. Even more simple, like literally nothing going on, just a sine wave. Got an envelope on the level, not an envelope, got a elephant on the level, which is acting as an envelope because I've set on envelope mode. And then got a bit of release on envelope 1 because envelope 1 is the amp that controls the whole of Serum. And then that's just got some distortion on there, and it had a compressor and a filter on before, but I've turned them off probably because it sounds shit. Again, I'm a massive fan of overdrive. I think it makes everything sound better. Some really obscure EQing. So I'm not even going to wonder why I did that. But I think it was more because there was... With subs, it's funny. Like... Yeah. Doesn't really make that much of a difference, but I probably at the time thought that was being clever. And then the reason I've got my subs cut into 2 different channels is because I probably had it as one and had all the notes playing, but for some reason, because of the plugin that I'll show you in a second that I use, it creates resonant peaks. So if I'm playing D and then 2 other notes, the other 2 notes might be at different amplitude than the first one. So what I probably did was made it so the first one was by itself, so I could just completely have, you know, the level set to what I want it to be, and then the other notes probably played fine, so I had them on another track. Yeah, and then what is this? Grunt. Again, like Serum, what's Serum doing? Probably the same, but it sounds like I've put an envelope in there, a pitch envelope. So instead of it being like ooh, it's like ooh. So yeah. So one thing I found out about Serum, obviously you can drag and drop LFOs, any modulations to the pitching up here, but I could never find how to do the pitching in the sub, unless you're kind of doing it with MIDI, and I didn't like that. So I found out that if you go into the matrix, you can assign any of the modulators to master tuning in globals, which is the tuning for the whole synth. So like, this is what it would have sounded like before. You can hear a bit more of a note, but if I put it back to what it was, it's a bit more of like a pitchier. So you can really start to hear the effect. Yeah. But yeah, not much going on there. And then last but not least, oh yeah, so what I was going to do is run through the plugins here. So, all my subs go into bus 14, which is my sub bus. And on my sub bus, this is my sidechain. So you remember how I was saying that I use bus 9 for sidechain? It seems like, again, because of laziness, I haven't used that. I've used bus 1. This is a really neat plugin. It's basically like a spectral dynamic EQ which can be used as a sidechain. So kind of like Waves Factory, which listens to the frequencies that's being sent and then only ducks those frequencies to the channel that you want to sidechain. So it's only ducking the kick frequencies from my sub. I'll just play the kick. So. Which still sounds good. I think I encourage people not to sidechain if they can, because you kind of get the full frequency. I think if I mix this tune down now, I probably would take that off because it sounds a little bit better. It's still got punch and it sounds clean, whereas back then I probably thought it sounded better. You can hear the sub moving out of the way a little bit. So once it's sidechained, it goes into this absolutely beautiful plugin, which is UAD Little Labs. I always call it the Little Goat for some reason, because it's a voice of God, and I always say voice of goat for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, this is a bass resonance plugin, so it puts, like, from what I can hear, it sounds like it puts like a really small notch on your bass, but really clean. And if you move the frequency around, it's really, really subtle. But so I use a sub pack, and that it goes together with the sub pack perfectly because you can actually feel which frequencies are messing with your kick, or we can kind of. It's almost like a formant shift for your sub. That's the best way to put it for me. It's a formant shift for your sub, so it kind of shifts all the frequencies, almost. I don't know. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. And then after my sub, pretty damn obnoxious EQ. I could have just done a normal one, low high cut, but I didn't. So yeah, and then that goes to don't be intimidated by all the bussing. It's just I like grouping things because it makes me stay a little bit more organized. So yeah, so that sub bus will go into my actual sub bus, which has got the UAD Teletronics compressor, which is just a really nice compressor. I think it works great with everything. I pretty much use it on everything. I only use compressors if I want to kind of glue things together and make them kind of sound like they're coming out of the same artifact. I don't know. I think that's the best way for me to put it. It kind of glues shit together. So 9 times out of 10 I will have the UAD compressors at the end of my groups. And then again, I'm a sucker for tape saturation, so I've got the extruder on there again. And then that would just go into my stereo out, which has, I'll get onto the master channel at the end. And then what I will do also is I'll have some of this sub going to another. So I'll split my sub into two. Instead of creating 2 different channels to process one thing differently, I'll have one going to 2 different sends. So on my bus 13 send, it's another Ampex bus. Again, just stuff for coloring. If you don't know much about coloring, I would just highly recommend that you check UAD out and just listen and trial and error is the best way for me to give advice to you with the UAD stuff. Again, some really, and that's the other thing about UAD that you have to be aware about, is that if you bus a lot of shit through a emulator, they will have hisses and artifacts, which you can turn off if you want. I like it on sometimes. If it's too loud, I'll turn it off, and you can't really hear it here, but I'll turn it off for now. Then that goes into an API, which is a channel strip. It's just like a dedicated channel strip, which has got a compressor and an EQ and a gate and all that lovely stuff. Again, I like it because of how it sounds. It's not better or worse than any other EQ. It's just a particular sound that I like. So that kind of drives the mids, I guess, of the sub. And for some reason, the bongos are also in that channel, in that bus. So yeah, and then that with the actual sub. Yeah, my neighbors hate me. But yeah, that's kind of the rundown of what I've used in this project file. And then again with the Vox, it's very simple stuff. It's mostly just stuff from Splice.
I'll show you what you wanna know.
So yeah, it's just Little Altar Boy, which is a picture, but it's got like weird artifacts. Sometimes when you picture it, it will like phase stuff and cut weird bits out, and I like that. CLI vocal, everyone knows CLI vocal. It's got some nice presets. I normally go for the rock female dry, the rock male dry, just because it kind of gives a bit more presence to your mix in terms of vocals. And then EQ, very simple EQing. Yep. Decided to use Track Spacer for this instead of the multi-spectrum for some reason. Again, probably a spur of the moment kind of thing. Might also be because of DPS. A de-esser. See, alright, so I normally don't really use de-essers that much because you could de-ess by just going onto ProQ and looking at where it's singing too much and then just dipping it there. But in this case, I was lazy and used the de-esser. Another EQ after the de-esser, probably because I wanted to de-ess even more. And then end all my stuff with a Struder because tapes are awesome.
I'll show you what you wanna know.
And everything on that Vox channel is just dry and everything's just going into. And then I've got a channel at the very end called just the Struder channel, which is like everything that isn't being sent to a bus. If everything's being sent to a stereo out, I'll just group everything to this bus so I can just write the Struder on it. Just because. Again, not much of a massive difference there, but it probably made sense at the time. Let me get back to the chat here. What is the sub pack? Did he explain it earlier? So the sub pack, you don't know. I'll just grab it. So a sub pack is this thing. You put this on your chair, and then it's meant to replicate a sub. So if you have neighbors that don't like loud noises, or you make music at night, or you just, don't have a treated room, then a pair of headphones and a sub pack can do a lot. I definitely recommend it. All those grunts on their own. Where do you get your vocals? Recently, I've definitely been getting people to record me vocals because it's just more unique and original, I guess. But a lot of my stuff's just been cut out of YouTube. Most of it's from Splice. I don't really have like one place that I go to get vocals. It's kind of just like whatever sounds good and whatever I can get fit in to the track, I guess. So yeah. Let's go into this.
I'll show you what you.
essentially it's just essentially four groups that I've refined. So like a drum group, a synth group, a subgroup, and a vox group. And they're just making sure that all the processing on each group is as best as it can be. And I guess the advice for that is to just trial and error lots of different plugins and see which one you like the best. I can't give you an experience of something. You have to experience it for yourself to know if you like it or not. But yeah, feel free to ask me more questions about plugins. Do you balance your reverb delay into audio? For example, the delay on the vocals at the drop. Delay of the vocals at the drop.
I'll show you why you.
Oh, this one here.
I'll show you why you wanna know.
Which one? There was one that was the echoes. I do know which one you're talking about. There we go, Echo Vox. So no, all my echoes aren't bounced. It's just on the channel. Probably because I don't like consolidating stuff. I don't like working in audio because I don't like committing to stuff. I always want to have my project files as editable as possible so that I can, if I'm not happy with something, I can change it. Even after a release, a lot of the times I'll go back into project file and be like, oh, it should have been mixed this way, and then boom, a VIP pops out. So I don't like consolidating. I don't like working with audio, even though everyone says that you should work with audio. I hate working with audio. I think my dream is to have a beast Mac that can just handle MIDI. Or everything running MIDI, anyway. Where'd you get your ideas and your vocal samples? Again, I just get my ideas and vocal samples from just anything. So if you go into QuickTime on your Mac, you can just do a voice record. So whatever's playing out of your Mac, you can record, and then boom, you've got stuff to use. Because every one of them was saying all the subpacks are sold out. Yeah, subpacks are sold out. Our XREF20 mics are sold out to like measure your room and correct your room and stuff. So everyone's feeling the pain, man. What do you usually keep? What level do you usually keep your sub balanced? So a good tip for doing sub for me is to solo the kick and solo the sub, and then I've got a bunch of this is one of the metering plugins I use, which is called Smart Electronics, and it's just the waveform. It just shows you the waveform of your project. And normally I'll try and I think having your kicks just a little bit louder than you never want your subs to be louder than your kicks unless it's like on purpose. So if you've got a really small kick, because your sub's so loud, then that's understandable. But I like a big kick and I like big subs, so I try and force them together, but it never works. But yeah, that's the only. Apart from that, I guess having a good room or getting a sub pack, or something for reference. I think referencing is one thing that I'll probably go over the most in this workshop. So yeah, man, I really didn't think time would go fast. Yeah, I never thought time would go this fast. God. How often do you start projects from scratch if you're using a template with these bosses set up? I always start stuff from scratch, but what you can do is you can save. So like, for example, if I go into a bus here, I've got all my buses saved. So I've got like all what would have been my bass, just as like as a starting point. I would really strongly advise against using templates, just because you'll end up getting into a routine of working the same, and then it just over time everything you make will just end up working the same because you're following the same formula over and over and over and over again. So I'd avoid using templates. I'd only use templates if it's just really convenient and it makes sense. Can you reference some good sub packs? There's only two after all. There's the sub pack, and then there's the sub pack Bluetooth. I've seen that you're running hot. It still seems great. Who cares? Mix. Yeah, dude. Wait till I show you this next project file. I'm embarrassed. We also have a rack feedback screen. Any tips on sound design? Alright, so sound design. I think, yeah, so this project file was just more for like how to arrange your drums, what plugins to use, how to group. I wish there was more stuff for me to elaborate on this project file, but it honestly isn't really that much going on. It's just having one loop that sounds good for me, and then kind of expanding on the areas that drew me in, and then adding things tastefully instead of just adding shit on for the sake of it. Also, I'd very much advise to like make a track and obsessively listen to it over and over again until you're tired of it, because once you get to the point where you're tired of it, in your head you start to hear what it should sound like, or what, yeah, like I was saying earlier, like stuff just becomes obvious for me anyway when I'm making music, and if I listen to like a test track over and over again, every time I listen to it at a certain point I'll be like, oh yeah, that needs to come in, or that sounds good. I think that would make sense there. I think, yeah, just intuition. But let's get into sound design. So
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
enough of that. Let's do the Volok one quickly, because this one I'll be able to go over in like 10 minutes. There's honestly not much going on. Again, you'll see. And this project file is a little bit older than my other one. So you'll kind of see how I used to mix down. And probably what I would do now. And what I would avoid. So this tune, damn. Okay. Hello.
Hey brother, can you up your mic like 3 dB more?
Again? Alright,
Yeah,
it's...
this track can be louder.
Oh, okay, alright.
Thank you.
Alright, no problem. Okay, mic issues. Sorry about this, everybody. My computer is freaky out. Alright, so this should be much better. Hopefully nice and loud. Better? Loud? Okay, so yeah, so this tune again, towel for everything, all my drums. My kicks are clipping at 7 dB. Okay, they're not. Okay, they are. Okay, sweet. Pretty much the same process I did last time, apart from Silver compressor is a very basic compressor. It just makes things louder for me. And then the only difference is I've got this PSB vintage warmer at the end, and I went through a phase of putting vintage warmers at the end of all my buses, just like how I treated the Struder. So I basically used the PSP as a tape saturator, but the problem with the PSP is it's also a limiter. So it just ends up squashing all your stuff. So that's why this track sounds like. Sorry if it's loud.
Yeah, we so off and on, we so.
Lots of noise in the mic. Oh yeah, it's probably my fan. Alright, hold on. Is that better? Okay, that should be better. That should be better. Right, so with this, with any remixes, so like normally when I start a track, I'll have just drums, like I was saying before, but with remixes, I'll tend to try not to listen to the original song of the remix, and what I'll do is I'll just take the vocal and kind of treat the vocal as an original for me. So my thought process behind making this remix was that it was my vocal and this is an original track. And obviously it wasn't because it was a remix, but that's kind of the thought process of what I did. And probably what I would have done first is had everything muted, so it was just a drum loop. I'll probably just have the drum loop with the vocal and then start to put the vocal in places. Oh shit. Oh, that sounds so bad. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry about this. Sorry, I'll get back to some questions while I'm doing this. How do you make room for bass kind of reverb? I'll get into that. So I use 2 reverbs for basses in particular, and that's Space Designer and Pro R, and I'll show you why. I've got 2 monitors now, so it's weird. Yeah, stuff with Lane coming on along the way. I'll play some. Yeah, I'll play some tunes at the end. Don't worry. Any go-to samples for kicks and snares? I have a few. So let's see if this works now. Yes, awesome. So, like I was saying before, what I probably would have done is had everything muted, so this wouldn't have existed yet, and it would have just been the drums with the vocal.
Yeah, we so off and on, we so. Yeah. Yeah, we so off and on, we so.
I think that's how it started. And then after that, so with sound design, when you're making like really aggressive bassy tracks, it's a tricky one because a lot of people tend to make the actual synth first. That, for example, but I didn't. I made the sub first.
Yeah, we so off and on, we so. Yeah.
God, that sub farts. So again, the processing of my subs mainly very similar. I'll use bass resonance on a sub bus that will go to another sub bus that's got a compressor on it, and that will go to the stereo out. But let's delve into some sound design. So for this track, I believe I used FMA. Yeah. So FMA, if you're not familiar with FMA, is a bitch of a plugin to get sounding good. I'll just take off all the plugins here. So super simple in the sense that it's just two waveforms FMing each other, frequency modulating with each other. So if I turned operator D off, it would just be, which is just a sine wave. And D, which is, I believe, a soft square wave, which is just that. I could have played them together like this, which sounded good, but if you have the lower operator frequency modulating the higher modulator, or the higher operator, you get this sound. And the cool thing about FM8 is that it's all done in ratios, so it's not done in semitones. So it's an interesting plugin to get into. But like I said, it's tricky because moving something one value out can make it sound bad. But also the cool thing about FM8 is because it's all mathematics. Because it's done all mathematically, you can get some really cool harmonics. Like they're always kind of in the same key. And it's just trial and error. I probably just messed around with the ratios on all of them. Let's go with that doesn't work. What about parallel compression? Let's see. You should have to make a UK, night-based UK style synth. I mean, yeah, I don't really know what you mean by night-based UK style synth. So the sub is parallel compressed and mixed back in. Yeah, so whatever I've got the top line to be, if I made the top line first, then the sub would be a copy of that patch, just getting processed through a different channel. I know that a lot of people like to keep them together because it sounds organic, so you wouldn't split one signal into two, you'd kind of try and make that one signal sound as best as possible. But I, again, like to split my stuff because it's just more control. There is a loss of, that you can get loss of frequencies when you do that, because obviously when you're low cutting things, so say like you've got your top bass and your low cutting at 200, and then you've got your sub and your high cutting at 200, there'll be like a small slither of frequencies that either overlap or you lose. So it's a trade-off. You see what I'm saying? Styrus, yeah, Styrus is a FM8 thing. FM8 synth. Again, so if I just run through all the plugins here, it's just really simple stuff, just distortions and... But oh yeah, so back to the reverb thing. If I was to put a reverb on this track, I would only use Space Designer because I feel like Space Designer's almost like a low. It's almost like a delay with like really short length. It doesn't sound like a traditional reverb, I don't think. But the smaller presets. It's too much. Sorry about my laptop, guys. This is absolutely killing me. So the reason I like using Space Designer is because I love the EQ on it. My computer. There you go. So I typically do something like this if I was going to reverb my basses. Just to give it a little bit more space. Or I'd use, this is a cool trick. So Reverb if you have problem with depth in your mix, so like pushing stuff to the back of the mix or having presence, I use Pro R because it's got this feature which is the distance knob, and if you put the mix all the way up and put the decay and the delay all the way down, so it's a really short reverb, you can control the distance. So you can have it really up in your face, or you can have it way back in the mix. So what I'll do is I'll have like all my reverbs, not all my reverbs, all my sweeps and effects that build up in the tune, or just any kind of Foley or anything in the background. I'll always put Pro R on it, and I'll push the distance all the way to the back, so it's kind of got like a 3D depth in the mix, I guess. And then obviously having all your claps and all your kicks and all your drums present in the front. This is really weird to explain this, but having it all present in the front and then having all your effects kind of around the back. So if you look at your production like a theatre, and like the drums are the performers, and then all the effects and everything are like the people sitting around the edge of the theatre, I guess, and then everything else is kind of contained within that bubble, and that's kind of how I imagine depth in the mix, anyway. How you make space for your bass sounds. How do you make space for your bass sounds? So another cool trick that you can do, I think it's only in Pro Q3 though. So if you have multiple instances of Pro Q3 on a track, so for example, if I had one on this bass sound here and then another one on the sub, my computer will. Then what you can do is you can solo the two channels that you're playing, and then on Pro Q you can bring up the other frequency analyzer. So if I solo the sub and the actual synth, if for some reason, oh, you know what, I'll take that reverb off quickly. And if for some reason my bass and my sub is clashing, or it's clashing with whatever else in the mix, what you can do is you can bring up the sub frequencies within your Ampex channel. So now I can already see in my sub at 500 or like 490 hertz, there's a real clash. So what I would do is I'd go into my sub and I'd find 400 hertz, 490 hertz, and I'd dip that motherfucker. And then you kind of just trial and error and try and get those red lines as down as possible. This kind of also goes into not overlayering too much, because if you overlayer, then you will run into problems consistently like this, which I wouldn't recommend. So I just try and find the best samples, the best, and when people say the best samples, I mean like the best quality samples. Like it just sounds good. I think the better it sounds, and it's so obvious to say, but the better it sounds, obviously, the better it'll sound in your music, you know? Yeah, freaking, so Pro Q, I use this religiously because of that feature that I showed you last time, like this. And I've got some really weird artifacts going on here. So, yeah, FMA would highly recommend it, really cool synth. Not terribly hard to get the hold of. It's just more trial and error. So this noise, if we just delve into this a bit more. Again, nothing too fancy, it's just one operator. Again, probably the same patch from the other one, just played at a lower MIDI. Yep, and then that's just got another soft wave. So it probably was exactly the same patch, apart from I just changed the ratios and somehow came up with this. See? And then you can endlessly have fun just changing the ratios and having fun with that. Another plugin that I would highly recommend for sound design is Tornado. Tornado is really cool just because of all the different effects that you can get, and also there's this thing called the dictator. So just like cool stuff. Like if you're ever stuck for ideas and you just want sounds to put in your tunes, Tornado, man. Like you can get really unpredictable, cool sounds from it, which you will definitely use in your stuff. I definitely use everything that I bounce down. Well, not everything I bounce down, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, not much to it apart from that. It's just different variations of the same synth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
There's
lots of automation on there as well, but the automation is not really doing much. It's probably just automating some parameters. Let's see. Oh, the harmonics. So this is pretty cool in FMA. Once you've made a sound, if you go into Easy Morph, boom, you've got another sound. I think the important thing for making like bass noises like this is to just try not to rasp your high end too much. Like really be aware of between like 1K and 5K, because that's kind of where you want your drums to hit. So you don't want too much going on there. If you do have too much going on, one thing that I can recommend is to use this plugin. So actually, you know what? I'll show you on my hats because it will make more sense. Lots of hats. That would do. So this plugin here, Dynamic EQ, is basically a multi-band compressor, but I feel like it's just got a little bit more control, and I like the UI and how it kind of looks. So very simple, kind of like Pro Q3 when you not actually take the frequency down, but when you just put the band there, so multi-bands it. Really similar. What I would suggest doing if you are really smashing loads of stuff through a particular frequency is just using this plugin, because it does a really great job. And you can ram it as much as you want to make everything sound level, and then once you've got everything level, you can put another EQ in and boost it. So it's kind of like you're not, you haven't got one sample which is peaking for one frequency. I don't know, I would put that really badly, but like if you multi-band compress or use dynamic EQ, it will level everything, and then once everything's the same kind of timbre, you can then boost on top. It's more for just like attack, like getting attack right, so it doesn't, the clicks and pops don't hurt your ears, basically. I have a really bad strategy of mixing tops, which is I'll play them really loud on my headphones and the EQ until it stops hurting, which is really bad because it fucks your hearing, obviously. I would not recommend that. I would recommend using dynamic EQs and kind of looking at the spikes individually and bringing them down. And it might take more time, but it'd be worth it because the track will sound good. How do you ensure that your bass patches cover enough for your stereo field? Duplicate it and make it stereo field. Like literally, so if I had this bass here, what I would do is I'd send it to another bus, and then within that bus, I would take all the mono out. So you can do that in program really easily. Take all the mono out, so it's just the stereo field. And then put distortion and whatever plugins you need to make it louder. So if I just soloed bus 28 now, damn, my computer's freaking out. Now it's purely just the side frequencies. So now you can boost that up, make it louder, put distortion on there, put another EQ on. You get the idea. But just try and split your stuff as much as possible so you have control. Kind of, that's my advice. Apart from that, there's honestly not much going on here. There's more effects and stuff. That really isn't doing much. You get the idea. How are we doing for time? Alright, we're only around 20 in. Alright, so I'm supposed to have 10 more minutes, but I'm gonna actually go on a little bit longer. Because I wanted to get into this Motus project file. How do you ensure that your bass patches cover enough? So, that one. Is your sub just a normal melody just being signed to? Is there a special way you go about handling the sub bass? I think an obvious thing to do in the beginning is to have the sub following the melody, although that shouldn't be the end of your experimentation. I think you should always try different things. As bizarre as they might seem, I've done some super weird things in my tunes. How do you ensure you overthinking? So my advice for not overthinking things is to not take equipment too seriously when you're being creative. So I don't like starting tunes on my speakers or my headphones for that matter, because I'll just end up taking my creative hat on and I'll just end up putting my mixing hat on. And when you're trying to mix while you're being creative, that's just it does not work. So what I'll do is when I start a tune, I'll just start the loop on my laptop speakers and just have a kick and a clap and something you can vibe to that's got nothing to do with mixing. And then once you're like, okay, that sounds fucking cool, then you bring it onto your speakers and then you make things sound better and it's kind of refine everything. But I think for being creative, just whatever's comfortable, man. I used to make tunes in my bed and then bring it down to the studio. When I was younger, I used to go to parties and produce in the corner of the party because I was just comfortable doing that. I think it's more just where you feel comfortable. That would be my advice. What can we expect from Orient Records? So I've got Messy dropping on the 29th, which is literally a week away, which is awesome. And then I've got a couple of night-based releases, June and July. So the next one after that will be August. So That advice that's super useful. Thank you very much, Tom. Mm, that side method should only be used if this track is relatively simple and not full. Or is it still fine if the song is pretty filled up? It depends. I think, like I said, there's not really a right and wrong way to do it. What I would do is I would just try and error everything. I would try everything because it's either going to sound better or worse to you, right? So only you will know what will sound better and worse for you. You shouldn't be making music for other people's opinion. I think if you're making tunes that you bump yourself and you're proud of, then I think you're winning. I don't think you should be distracted by the spectacles of all these big plugins and all these master chains and stuff like that, because ultimately, you know, you're making music for yourself. Well, I am, for me anyway. Yeah, show that incline code over the Latin vocals. Yeah, that was the old All Night Dancing remix, which got turned into that, which got turned to something else, and now it's something else. So. You know what? I wrote some notes down here. Yeah, try not to overthink when being creative. So just get an idea going that you just enjoy. I think that's the main thing, and then get into the whole mixing business once the record that you're making has got identity. And what I mean by identity is like everyone's gonna start off making a tune with just a loop and just some kicks and just some claps, right? No one starts off a project file. Not me, you know. I don't sit down starting a project being like, I know exactly what I'm gonna make. Like, no. I faff around for the first hour trying to muster something together, and then some way along the way, through just trying lots of different things, I'll like one bit will strike out to me. I'll be like, oh shit, that's cool. I'm gonna expand on that one little thing. And it could be as insignificant as like a tail of a snare, which sounds good in your headphones and gives you a bit of a shivers, and you're like, ooh, that rubbed me the right way. So then you expand on that, and then, you know, it's. I wish I was better at explaining things because, yeah. See you live in Philly in March. Thank you very much, dude. Philly was awesome. Never been there before, and that was my first time, so that was awesome. Had a cheesesteak and everything. Thank you for doing this so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys. The realest to talk, you know. Was it obvious to you that you would be making music full time? Not really. I mean, so I started producing when I was 14. I had a paper round job and got a Dell Inspiron PC with a trial version of FL Studio. And then on that trial version, because you couldn't save project files, I got into a habit of finishing tracks in one sitting because I couldn't save it. So ultimately, if you didn't bounce what worked on that day, then it's kaput. You're not going to have that anymore. So I had to force myself to finish everything in one session, which is probably why I work the way I do. Yeah, so Voice of God is like a formant for your sub. It like emphasizes like different peaks and tones. Looking for a minute of time, mate. Mate, I'll be back in Philly soon, man. Call your set in New York in March. New York was crazy. You and Lorenzo play a lot of each other's music. Well, yeah. I fucking love that dude, man. He's like been the biggest inspiration for me, like ever, in terms of just being open-minded and trying different things. Because the first time I sat in the studio with Lorenzo and I saw how he was just whacking stuff on and redlining the crap out of everything, and he didn't give a fuck because it sounded good, I was just like, cool, all the barriers are broken for me. Now I don't have to feel weird if my shit's clipping, and I don't have to feel like an amateur producer if stuff's not sitting right technically. All I trust on my ears. What did you learn from collaboration with Chris Renzo? Lots of things. I can't really think of them off the top of my head. More just like he's a human being that's just very inspiring to be around. He's just very musical and very talented. So credit's due where credit is deserved. Let's jump into this before I ramble on too long. So this will be kind of picking this with a hair, what's it called? Fine hair tooth painter. Knew that would happen at some point. So sorry about that. Hold on. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Damn. This is super annoying. But we'll just have to make do. Right, so let's get into this. I wonder. Bear with me, guys. Sorry, it's too fucking hot. It's hot here as well. I've got all the blinds closed, I've got the fans on. It's blistering here in Brighton today. Really damn hot. But yeah, more questions. The Pigeon Dog collab is sick. Any release on that? That was lost on Loz's laptop, along with Back of the Bus and a couple other project files. That was a sad day. Can't wait for this video. Is this not released? No, this is a Moses remix I did a couple of years back. Right on the drop outro, no man. Hurts. Love that you did this. I hope I can do more of this. This is the first time I've ever really had anyone look into my project files or explain how I do things to anyone. We'll get through this, guys, I promise. I promise. Oh, but I'll just try and explain it as best I can without actually playing anything, which is going to be really hard. But again, I use Tau for all my kicks, and all my drums and all my one-shot samples or resampling in general. It seems that I've put the kick. Oh, this is the kick. This is the 808 layer, I think. So yeah, that's super simple. Just an 808 that I found of Splice. Short attack, short delay. The reason I've got the attack up is because I want the kicks transients to punch through a little bit more than the actual 808 that I've got there. And I've got a tuner on here because sometimes I'm skeptical of samples, so I do want to just make sure that they're perfectly tuned. I put a PSP vintage warmer at the end of my kick chain here, but what I started doing was going through my project files and taking them off because, like I said, vintage warmer has got a limiter, so it ends up crushing your stuff. So now, this kick here, if I were to just take the PSP off and turn it down, it's like almost clearer. It's just not as muddy. It depends what you like. I think like I said before, I go through phases of liking myself muddy too much so that I kind of get it out of my system, and then I want to mix clean for a month to get it out of my system, and then I'm kind of going between the two. And I guess that's how you kind of sculpt your sound, is by trying lots of different things and finding out what you like personally and what sounds good to you. Like I said, I can't give you this experience. You have to go and experience it for yourself. One cool thing that I did do with the snare here is I think it's super delayed. Yeah, so this is probably done by mistake, but what I would do now is, so you see that the beginning, there's a little bit of space so that the rim shot's actually playing after the kick's playing. So if you slowed the tune down really slowly, it'd be like kick, space, 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 snare. So both the transients are playing. Whereas if you had them directly on top of each other, the kick would have to compensate, or the snare would have to compensate. So one of the transients would have to come down. Whereas if you had shit just playing like a little bit off, both the transients would play. So now what I'll do is like I'll have a kick, and then like a sample, sample, snare, sample, sample, clap, and then other claps and other claps, so that they're all playing one after the other. But because they're playing so fast, it sounds like they're playing together and fluid, but you can just hear everything clearer. So what I'd probably do now is, if I were to put a sample in, so I'd put it to the beginning, and then I just put the delay up, which would be the same. And even make it even more delayed if you know. I don't know. Some people don't like laziness when it comes to drums and swinging. I love laziness. I think it sounds cool. I'm a big Jay Dilla fan, so you know how he humanized the MPC and how he, took off quantize, and he's very anti-quantize. And I used to quantize everything for a long time until I was like, why does my shit not sound as good as other people's shit sonically? Not the ideas, more just like, why are my mix downs lacking, and why are my claps not coming through as much as other people's claps? And then I started to realize, oh yeah, if you have everything, like, yeah, this is coming back to the overlapping thing. You can have lots of different claps and snares, just don't overlap them like directly on top of each other. Have a little bit of space in between things, because it just humanizes a bit more. You want it to sound like someone's playing it through MIDI as much as possible, because it sounds humanized. Otherwise, if it's too robotic and like, yeah, it just doesn't sound as good in my opinion. Jay Dilla is the GOAT, man. So what do you do with the Moog base station? Right, so that's what I was getting into. So this tune over here, I'm just going to delete these things because it's... Don't worry, it's all saved. So if you're not familiar with the bass station, it's a monophonic bass synthesizer. You can only play one note at a time. You can play two notes at a time if you program it right, but that's the maximum that you can do. I'd highly recommend it. The Moog's cool, but the Moog's very one particular sound. So all these bits in the Moses remix that I did, minus the vocals, all of this. So yeah, all of this is the bass station that I've just recorded and chopped up. Yeah, so that was all recorded in. Easy stuff. If you don't know how to do that, you just plug in your synthesizer with a DI cable into whatever sound card that you have, and then you just turn the direct input off so you don't hear it twice, and then just record, play whatever you want to play. And like I was saying earlier with remixes, I hadn't actually heard the original song. I took the remix on purpose, not knowing the original song, because I have real trouble remixing stuff that I like, because I'll just end up trying to recreate the original drop, because that's what I hear in my head over and over, you know. So I didn't hear the original. I just took the vocal and kind of cut it up, and then start to build around the vocal, in a sense. Yeah. So that with everything sounds like this. Oh yeah, there's the main vocal as well. Hold on. Sorry. There we go.
Pull up to the wishing well, praying that you wish me well. Take me out of this disguise, praying that you see me right.
Any way to prevent any system overload? Don't stream. I guess that's the. I mean, everything runs fine for me normally. There were obviously like other project files that I really wanted to show you guys, just because it's a lot more technical than all of this. But unfortunately, my computer can only just about handle these project files that I'm showing you now, which is a massive shame, because I would have really loved to. Kind of delve into that. Since in the middle, vocals on the side. I don't think that was intentional. I think when I was building it, because the bass station can only get recorded in through a mono cable, everything that recorded in was mono. What I would have done now is obviously made that mono signal into a stereo signal, and then had the vocals in the middle and the synths on the side. But for this project, with laziness, I just kept everything the way it was and tried to make the vocals kind of fit with everything else. Can bounce samples down using audio less intensive than MIDI? It is, but I explained why I don't like doing that, because then I can't, further down the line, if I don't like something, I can't change it out. So yeah, it's just a case of getting a better computer for me, really. I want to give one more try and see if I can play the drop. Let's just delve into some of the sounds here. So these sounds here that are all labeled motors, these were recorded in from the base station. Yeah, these would have just been recorded in through the base station. That would have cut up and processed differently. And when I process things, and the reason there's loads of sound shifters is because I made the remix originally a different key, which is the original key of the vocals, and then I finished the remix, and I was just like, damn, the sub's just not hitting right. So I put a sound shifter on the master and kind of kept lowering the value until the sub sat right. I mean, the project sounded like shit. Then I had to go back in and rebounce out the vocals and everything, but because rebouncing everything that I wrote on the base station again was pretty much near impossible because you can't get the same signal twice through hardware. Well, you can, but it'd be different, and it's just a super long process. I decided to put a sound shifter on everything, which is super embarrassing, but it worked. Because the actual sample, if you listen to it without sound shifter on, it sounds way better. It's like cleaner. Whereas like when you put sound shifter on, it will like so much frequency gets lost. You can use this, which is elastic pitch, which is a bit more of a high quality picture, I guess. But again, like a hell of a lot better than sound shifter, and it's got a format shift as well. Obviously I got this plugin after this remix was made, so I couldn't use it, which is a shame, but this is probably what I'd use now. And if I wasn't using elastic pitch, I'd use Melodyne. So what I would do is Melodyne on, and then drag onto the Melodyne channel, and then it should I don't know why it hasn't, but it normally brings up the MIDI there, and then you can kind of manipulate the MIDI. I'm not going to do it now because it will absolutely burn my computer. So that's what I've done with hardware. Also, the track that I wrote with Charmy, Godspell, this one. Ooh, sorry about that. All of that was the Moog. So that, I've used the Moog once in one record, and that was the record I wrote it in. Can you open up an instance of Trash to see how you can use it? I can never find a pleasing way to use it. Yeah, of course. So let's just solo this sound here. Then what I'll do is I'll take off the so without everything, it would have just sounded like this. That's what the bass station is capable of. It's so gnarly, but so nice and rich. And normally I'll just go through presets really. I think, yeah, hubby bottom. And then what I probably would have done is I would have dialed it in, because I know how tempting it can be when you have like an effects plugin, how it's always tempting to like smash everything through the wet so that 100% of the signal is coming through, but actually kind of want it like a bit of both. I think, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's called like Brooklyn compression or something, parallel compression, when you have the dry signal mixed in with the wet signal. So trash is super simple. It runs left to right in terms of the processing. So it will go through the filter first, and then trash, and then another filter, and then the convolution, and then dynamics, and then delay. You can change it so you can route it differently. I don't really fuck with that too much. But yeah, super straightforward EQ. Trash is where all the fun kind of begins. So with trash, you can split your bands. You can up to 4 bands, and then you can kind of go into each band and put the drive up, or different kinds of distortions. Yeah, that's all just trial and error, really. I can't really tell you which ones sound good and which ones don't sound good, because it's completely relative on what you put it on. Another filter, Convolve's pretty cool to getting cool sounds. Just gives it like a bit. It just gives it texture, different kind of coloring again. Yeah, so I think of Convolve as the coloring, trash as the distortion, obviously, and the filters as the filters. I don't really fuck with the dynamics too much, and I pretty much never use the delay. And obviously, for some reason, I've got it doubled up. I've got another trash here, because it's probably on another preset. Yeah, some robotic vocal preset. So what I probably would have done is just listen to it and be like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And then, that was a massive fail. Nice amount of click at the end there for my click bros. And then with this, it probably was the same sound, doubled, but I've put a gain on it, and the gain is just making it mono. I don't know why I did that. It seemed to work for this track. And then on top of that, I've got each sound going to their relative buses. So I've got a little bit going to the Ampix bus, a little bit going to my sub bus, and then a little bit going to this crazy distortion send, which is basically like taking. I'll just break it down. Some super weird EQing there. Trash on there for some reason. And then a Pro R, like with the distant thing I was talking about. So if I really wanted to push this to the back of the mix, I could do that. And now it's just at the very back of the mix. And then that played with everything else. So yeah, that's how I kind of process audio signals. But if we look into, this will be quite fun for you guys. That's alright. I'm just going to take all the. I won't take anything else. I'll just mute it for now. So that's what it would sound like completely dry. And to make it even drier, I'll put it through the stereo out. So that's what. So that is what my bass would sound like straight out of Serum. We can kind of look into what it's doing. let's just bring it back to basics. So, just a sub, nothing there really. Bit of distortion. I'll even turn these off, and I'll get rid of that. I'll turn these off. So straight out of the box, just a sub, just a sine wave. Some sort of weird, like a waveform that's got a lot. It's quite busy. It's got a lot of noise, which pretty much just sounds like this. And then I like to do it so my basses are a major. So what I'll do is my root note will be the sub, and then my major, which is a third up or 3 up. Sorry, 4 up. Just makes it sound a little bit uneasy, in my opinion, because this would be a minor, and then this would be a 5th, and then an octave, obviously. Messy was made in +8, so it was like weirdly the sub was detuned from the in my mind it didn't work, but it sounded good, so I just left it. But yeah, that's not doing much. What is it? LFO controlling.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Controlling the level again, but it's an envelope. And then this LFO1 is modulating the level of oscillator B, as well as the level of the sub, as well as the sync window. So that's what it sounded like if it was just kept, but I liked it if the end sounded like it was being synced. Trying to see what I'm saying, yeah. And then that's got a really simple, I don't know what this stands for, but LBH filter, which has got a lot of drive. So yeah, that's what the sound would sound like just out of the box. Bit of distortion, gives it a bit more dimension expander to give it a bit of width. EQ I'm kind of using as like just another filter. So essentially there's 1, 2, 3, 4 filters on this one patch, which is insane because it doesn't make any sense. And then this reverb EQ filter, which is really fucking cool. Get some fucking cool artifacts with that. And then on top of that, a bit of trash. Again, not doing much. Probably just a preset. Chorus tape. There's a bunch of cool. I love all the presets in trash. So I think that was actually one that I tweaked. Yeah. So again, simple filter with a duck, duck goose. Distortion, no filter, not enabling the second filter, some kind of convolution, and then probably left these how they were from the preset. So where are we at now? Like that, and then overdrive, my best friend overdrive. Simple EQ. Just taking off some tops. So you won't even really notice much. So this, right. So everyone asks me, how did you make the Skank and Flex bass sound? I don't understand how you made it. It's so stereo, one sound sounds blah blah blah. Right. So what I actually did for the Skank and Flex bass sound was I was EQing it like this, but I was an idiot and when I went to place my Pro Q2, I placed it on dual mono instead of stereo. So when you open the dual mono version of Pro Q2, you can obviously EQ the left and right or coupled. You can, you can EQ left and right individually. I EQ the left drastically from the right and completely forgot about it because I must have been really, really, really high. And I was like, oh, this sounds really cool. And then sent it to Wax, and he was like, yeah, this sounds fucking sick. And then when I actually looked over the project file, I noticed that I had that stupid thing there. Yeah, so that is the story of Skankerflex. So I did the same here. You know what? I think this bass patch was the one that turned into the Skankerflex bass patch, because if you go into my channel strips, I have every single bass patch I ever made, ever, in every single song. I've got everything as channel strips, so I can just bring them up, and I can save on the fly. And another cool thing, my Logic users, if you are running out of CPU, there's lots of things in your project file that aren't getting used, and you can just delete them, and then you've got more CPU. And the other thing is, I had no idea you can import project files. So if I was like, oh, I just want the kick from Broken Ribs, for example. So if I was like, my Broken Ribs project file, if I open that, and hopefully my computer doesn't explode. Now I've got all the channels here on the right of that project file, so I can go like, I just want the kick, say I just want the snare. And you tick all these boxes here, and then you add all, and it shouldn't take too long, and then yeah, so now I've got everything from the arrangement from my old project file. So these are all the snares from the Broken Ribs, and it will create new buses with everything on them, like all the processing, all the post-processing that you did. It will have them there. So now, oh my god, that sounds terrible. I think it was because. Yeah, that was it. I mean, yeah, it doesn't work for this project file because it sounds like shit, but you get the idea. That can save a lot of time if you've already got templates and project files, and you just want to bring in. Maybe it was just like a processing or something that you forgot, and you don't want to close this project file and open something else. Producers to watch, in your opinion? Distinct. I've always been a massive fan of Distinct. Lorenzo, obviously. You know what? There's a load of new artists that have actually been. Mescal Kids, Pax. MNNR, he's a new dude on Night Bass. He's fucking sick. I think in terms of creativity, it'd probably be Distinct, just because he's super creative with how he mixes. And if you don't know who he is, check him out. He's definitely one to watch. But you guys know more than I do. What's it like collaborating with the Master Charmy? Charmy's cool. I don't know him too well. He's quite reserved, but he's a cool guy. He's a very cool guy, very talented, super talented. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know where to go from here. I'd love to, ask some more questions and. Oh, you know what I'll do actually? I'll just play some new tunes. This is a new remix that I did for Aces later. Where is it? This is the newest thing I've done recently. I wish I could show you guys my iTunes, but I just can't.
Gotta come in this body to lose control. You gotta come in this body to free your soul. You gotta come in this body to lose control. Lose control. Free your soul. You gotta come in this body to lose control. You gotta come in this body to free your soul. You gotta come in this body to lose control. Lose control. Free your soul. Wow. You gotta come in this body to lose control. You gotta come in this body to free your soul. You gotta come in this body to lose control. Lose control. Free your soul. You gotta come in this body to lose control. You gotta come in this body to free your soul. You gotta come in this body to lose control. Lose control. Free your soul.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a couple questions. How about some of your synth design in detail? Well, I kind of went through this in detail. I can bring up some more sounds. My computer's being a card. Again, probably the same patch, just processed differently. I think the most important thing is like having a sine wave as your fundamental and then using noisy waves to kind of bleed into the sound and just having your envelopes really tight. So like, for example, if you have your... So this is a cool trick. So like, if I took this off so that the envelope for the sub is long, and then I've got the small envelope controlling the bleed of the higher note. I think, yeah, mainly it's just making sure your envelopes are different. I think when everything's so this kind of brings back to like normalizing stuff again. You don't want everything to be exactly the same, because I feel like when everything's the same, it just sounds too robotic. So you want stuff to fray off a little bit from, yeah. Apart from that, it's just all really basic stuff in terms of filters and you know, wavetable choices. Most of my stuff's mainly just a sine wave being modulated by another noisy wave that's got harmonics with a different envelope on it, and then just a ton of distortion, really. You did a remix of Grizzlies Could You Write? Yes, I'll play that right now.
Do you want me? Alright. Do you want me like I want you? Do you want me? Alright. Do you need me like I need you? Do you need me tonight? Do you need me like I need you? Alright. Do you want me like I want you? Do you want me? Alright.
And I also made the second drop pretty much unmixable because there's like an extra bar that's just there for no reason.
Do you need me? Do you want me like I want you?
So yeah. Well, I guess that really comes to the end of it, really, because I don't really know what else I can expand on unless I bring up some more project files. But obviously, my computer's being really annoying today, and it's really hot, so that kind of comes to the account. But yeah, if there's any more questions, then ask away. I am right here. Is the vocal in Kush from Flatbush Zombies? No, the vocal from Kush is from Dread MC. You can like electric guitar, yeah, that was all Spice. Just again, chopped up through house sampler. Messy, messy, messy. I wish I could bring up the messy project file, but it just would set my computer on fire. But I'll play it for you. If I can find it.
Drum like Messi kickball, man I kick 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 drum like Messi kickball, 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 man I kick drum like Messi kickball.
Yeah, that's a fucking stomper. Yeah, that's out on my label Orient Records, which is you can see on the background. Orient Records on the 29th of May, which is next Friday. And then I'll have a bag of releases on that throughout the year, and planning to drop my second album on there as well, on my label as well. So yeah, you guys will definitely be the first to know. And hopefully I will be back. And going back, you know what, there was someone who said, was that the Josh Pan remix? Yes, that AC Slater is... That Josh Pan remix, nothing happened with it, and I was really sad. So I took the drop, and I incorporated AC's vocal. Do you master all your own tunes? So I started mastering all my own tunes probably about a year ago, because I started to get masters back from companies and it just didn't sound like how I wanted it to sound. So now I do all my own mastering now. Do you make pads from resampling and adding reverb effects to loops, or do you synthesize it from scratch? So there's plugins called hybrid samplers like Falcon, UVI Falcon, and Tau Sampler to a certain extent, and Avenger, which is another granular sampler. They can split an audio file and play each bit as much as possible, basically. Orient IG page. No Orient Instagram. I'm not opening another social media account because social media drains me and I hate it. building one account is just so much stress, and I just don't want to deal with that. So I'm just putting it out through all my stuff. Whole live stream was super informative and inspiring. Thank you for being here. I will definitely be back. I really enjoyed doing this. Do you just do one master streaming performance? Yeah, basically get as loud as I can without it sounding shit. Tell us some of your mastering tricks. People will laugh at me now, but I always have sausage fattener on the master at the very end of my chain on my master, and then I'll have like UAD plugins beforehand. So whether it be like the master passive for EQing and polishing, and then maybe like the fatso for compression. So it's just like lots of different UAD plugins do different things with a sausage fattener in the end to just like keep it there, you know? But the best advice I can give you in terms of mastering is referencing. Referencing is the best tool that you can use for improving your mixdowns, because it's like if you're a fucking painter, you're literally tracing to become good at drawing, you know? So there's certain techniques you can learn by recreating them or learning how to recreate them. I honestly thought you were going to say limiter on the master. Yeah, I do have a limiter on the master. I have sausage fattener on the master. Nah, man, sausage fattener is... No. As in, like, sausage fattener is the limiter. Sausage fattener is the limiter, and then I have loads of UAD plugins beforehand pushing it for clarity. Who do you use for personal references? Really curious. Chris Lake, Distinct, and Chris Lorenzo are the three kind of people sonically that I just want to work towards. Do you have an email to send us promos to? Yeah. Send it to Taiki at tunesfortaiki.com. That's a real email. And do you prefer to start collabs? So I'm notoriously known for wanting to finish project files because I don't know. It's just the thing that I like. I like finishing things. I hate it being in someone else's hands. We also the stream. Thank you, so sick. Thank you very much for being here, man. It's been fun to just kind of talk to you guys, you know, person to person, screen to screen, and yeah, give you some insight into how to do this. You know if loudness affects live performance? I don't know. So I use the waves meter, loudness meter. So it's got like a loft meter, and I try and have my stuff at like minus 7.5, minus 7, minus 6 lufs. That's like a pretty good indicator. Distinct stuff's like minus 3 lufs, which is like Skrillex level. It's fucking insane. When is Glamour coming out? So Glamour will be coming out on Orange at this point, on my label at some point. When? I don't know. But yeah. It'll be there. I need to get a haircut, dude. I keep looking at my screen and it's just like, so long now. So yeah, I think I'm going to be on for 5 more minutes and take some questions, and then we're nearly 2 hours in. No, only 2.5 hours in. Jesus Christ, yeah, I was only supposed to do this for an hour and a half. Yeah, I've had tons of fun. Taiki at tunesfortaiki.com. Yep. If not, just Taiki Nulight, one word, at gmail.com is the email that I use day to day, but you can send it either or, really. Up to you. You put it after or before the compressor? After the compressor. So my sausage fattener will be the last thing on my chain on my master, just to make sure that it limits. Nothing's going over 0. And even then, I'll touch the fader so it's at like 0.4, so it's not hitting 0 quite. It's still loud. But again, like a limiter is a limiter. It doesn't really matter which one you use. Different ones sound different. It doesn't mean some are better or worse. I used to use the Oxford limiter for all my stuff because I had that enhanced knob that made everything clearer, but then it was kind of like you're just using that plugin to compensate for your mixes. So, best advice for sub-kick relationship. Sub-pack is the best because you can feel it. Or that trick that I showed you earlier with the Pro Q3, and then you bring the two instances up together and you can basically see the other curve in one Pro Q spectrum analyzer, so you can be like, oh, it's clashing there, and you can dip and, you know. So basically, by the end of your mix, you want everything to be as flat as possible in terms of like your highs should be only a little bit louder than your lows in terms of like the actual graph. It just try and make it as full as possible. If you're looking at your mix down and everything's playing at the chorus and you see dips in places, then it just means that you're missing those frequencies. But that's not a good or bad thing. Like, it completely depends on what you're trying to go for and what you're trying to achieve. That's the good thing about creative mixing. I'd really recommend a video on YouTube that Noisia did that really got me thinking about creative mixing, and it's a tutorial by Nick by Noisia, and he literally goes on about creative mixing. So, yeah. I'll cut your hair if you cut mine. You know what? I want to shave my head, but I think I'm too much of a pussy to do that. But like I said, it's all about experimenting and having fun. Actually, I'll type it out in here. Hold on. It's all about experimenting and having fun. If you're not having fun when you're making music, then you're not you should try something different. I think exploring and having fun and the ambiguity of everything is kind of part of music production for me. I like the fact that you learn stuff every single day. Like, to this day, I'm still learning things every single day. Noisia is another example. They've been in the game for 20 years now, and they're still learning things. So it's music production is kind of, it is just art. You can't know everything. You have to try and know as much as possible, and then kind of freestyle in between. So like, get really good at your technicals, and then freestyle in between. I don't know. I'm rambling now. Have you ever had an issue where you mix random ducks while listening on another device? Yeah, that just means you're ramming stuff too much. It just means that because one aspect in your tune is too loud, it's making all the other aspects quieter. So at that point, what you want to do is bring all your gain staging down so that it's not overwhelming your bus, and then turn it up on the bus. They were supposed to break up at the end of this year, Noisia, but because of the coronavirus, they're splitting up at the end of next year. That's dope. Coronavirus has brought us one good thing, and that's that Noisia will continue for another year. My mixing is a lot better, but do you ever dread the finishing touches on your mixes? Yeah, and I'll tell you why I hate it, because it can take forever. A song's only finished when you kind of surrender to it. It's never finished in my eyes. You can always keep making it better, which is probably why I do so many VIPs and so many remixes. It's not that I set out to do so many VIPs and remixes, it's just like I'm keep revisiting the project file because I think it could be better. Set your expectations high. Yeah, anyway, that's all I've got time for. I'd love to stay and hang. I'm really hungry. Sorry, I keep talking here, but you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining me in this workshop. I hope you've taken some things away from this experience and hopefully can implement it in your own mixes. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna go, guys. I love you all. I hope you're staying safe. Wash your hands. Look out for each other. Eat well. Make banging tunes. Yeah. And yeah, cheers and be safe. I love you all.